All right, so in today's video, I'm going to be giving you the best recipe for armor, explaining the best way you can craft the best armor inside of the forge. Now, as a quick note, I do have good armor. Promise you, I have good armor. I just have it hidden because it looks better not hidden or showing. But as a quick note, I will be using higher end ore. So if you do not have the ability to use this ore or get it, are wanting to use some other materials and want different passives than what I'm doing, because this is obviously for my own purpose, but I'm just showing you what I'm going, like the process I go through before crafting to get a very optimal build. So as a quick note, and I'm going to be giving away either every single game pass, or I'm going to be giving away 50 rerolls to a few people. And to enter into the giveaway, if you want to enter, all you got to do is comment Roblox username down below, leave a like and hype this video, and that'll enter you into the giveaway. Also, the information will be used on the website in the description, so you can check that out. That'll be in the description. So first things first is what we're going to be crafting with is very, very important. Now, obviously you can, just slap in a bunch of ore and get something with a decent multiplier and call it quits there, but this is very, very wasteful and is not the smartest thing you can do. So what we'll do, like best thing to start off with, is figure out what ores you consistently have a decent amount of. So obviously the best armor is going to be the knight armor or heavy armor. Heavy armor is the highest rarity. Heavy armor and the knight armor obviously are in this rarity, but the reason why this is the best is because it uses the most resources. So unlike weapons where it really just matters the multiplier you have, the armor, it really matters the amount of items you have. So essentially what you're going to do is firstly figure out the amount of ores you have and what you can optimally get. Now you can either figure out which ones you have and what you need to get to, or you can just cross your fingers and go to get something else. Now for the first note, my weapons or my ore, right? I have these. I just recently made a video about the best weapon recipe. You can go check that out. I used a decent amount of magmite and firite. So I don't have much of that to show, but this is two very good weapon materials as a note. But first things first, the description, this will be the website right here. We're going to come on down to ores and the forge calculator. We'll use this later, but mainly going to be using the ores. So as a note, if you didn't know this, ores have what's called a trait. Now the trait is what is like the passive ability your thing has. So as you see on my weapons, I have this like mithril on this dark knight. This is mithril because this is the main resource I used to craft it at the time. So that's why it's purple and all that. As you see, 5% longer invincibility on dash, because if you don't know, when you dash you have like a bit of invincibility, 4% more stamina, minus 4.5 health. This is because I used eye ore. Increase of physical damage by 6.8, and a reflect 20% of physical damage taken, maximum damage given, limits at 5% max health of the user, 0.05 cooldown. So this is like thorns, right? So if someone deals damage to you, they take some of that damage back. And then obviously the last one being vitality with a 15% extra health. Now realistically what you could do is if you have strong armor and you've upgraded it, you could put a bunch of thorns on it. You could put like a ton of thorns on it, right? And if something tries to kill you and deals damage to you, they'll take a ton of damage back, allowing you to either AFK stuff and not die or things like that. Now, one thing about AFKing is I am trying to make it widespread. You can easily kill AFKers. Like if someone's AFKing, like right here, they're AFKing down there, you can easily kill them. Like if they're AFKing right here, just drag over like a death axe skeleton like this and they'll kill them. Then you can do that. Or you can come down here and just drag a unit up this, because they can walk up this because of the small increase they can walk up it. You can drag them up here and then they can hit it. That's just as a little side note. You can get, if you get a I think it's a pyromancer, the one new one they added, he can shoot and ranged attacks and kill everyone in that section if he gets close enough. So that's what I do when I don't want people AFKing right there in my server. So next thing is going to be the crafting recipes, right? So this is what you want to look for. So say you have a good amount of obsidian and you have resources around this. So obsidian is a 2.35. I would only recommend using ores that are in the same 1x range. So nothing more than 3.3 or 1.3 with this if you're using obsidian as your main, because you're either going to lose value on the higher ores or lose value on, or pretty much just that. You're going to lose value on your higher ores if you use crap with it. So I would not really recommend going in a 1x range of the lowest or highest ore. So with obsidian, 30% extra defense on your armor. So this is a good passive, good trait to use, because obviously extra defense, that means your armor's that much better. So if my armor has 100 defense, it's actually going to be 130. So it's pretty decent. You could use that realistically earlier when you have a lot of obsidian. I have sold a lot of obsidian. I don't know if I have any anymore. Yeah, I've sold a lot. I no longer have any. The only lower ones I keep are like crystals, since these are actually kind of hard to get, and these ones, since these just, I mean, are like the higher ups. Like Riviolite is a 3.33, so it's good for just bulk crafting recipes and examples, and using as like a filler, if you get what that means. The next is going to be other ores. So the only other ores that have passives that affect armor is going to be uranium with a 5% max HP AoE damage on armor, mithril, which is a 15% extra defense on armor. Once again, this is what I mainly crafted my current armor with, which was mithril at a 3.5x, and then ore. So ore is a 15 plus damage on weapons and armor. I don't get the and armor because armor doesn't deal damage, and minus 10% health. So you realistically don't want to use ore when you're crafting your armor. And then fireite, this is for weapons, magmite is for weapons, lightite is for armor, so 15% extra movement speed on armor. So I'd really recommend using a bunch of lightite if you have it. Now these are the best ores in the game, demonite and darkerite, whatever you say. These ones have the highest multiplier on average that you can consistently get. Obviously, you know, galactite is the best, but darkite and demonite burn a demon's backfire passive and shadow phantom step passive. So these give you physical abilities and passives that no other thing can do, but it's only for your armor. So what this does, if you go over to the crafting recipe, this is just off the homepage, just right here on the Forge calculator. So if you come to this, what you can see is if I want to craft the most optimal armor, I want to use at least 5 darkite and at least 5 demonite. As you see, oh, but there's no passive, select armor. Boom. Anything more than 5 of either one doesn't increase the passive. This is the highest you can get. 25% chance to reflect burn. So what happens is it reflects the damage and applies it to the enemy that dealt that damage, and also applies burning. And then darkite, which has a 15% chance to dodge it. So if you have this max on your armor, helmets, like your helmet, chest plate, and leggings, you're going to have this equal out to a 45% chance in total to dodge attacks, which is really good if you think about it, especially when you're fighting units like the Reaper that are really annoying. Now, this is where the math has to start mathing. So now what you're looking at is a 5.9 multiplier. So if you have an equal parts darkite to demonite, you're going to have a 5.9 overall. Now, this is where someone I saw was crafting, right? And they were using a good amount of darkite and a good amount of demonite. And I looked at their recipe and they decided to throw in, I think it was like, they were throwing in like emeralds or something, right? You see how just 5 emeralds has brought this down to a 4. Each one we remove is like a plus 2. So you don't want to add in garbage. I think literally their recipe that they were crafting, it was like some ore, these, and then they threw in some riviolite, and it was like this. So if you can understand basic math and comprehend how horrible that really is, when realistically he had enough resources to just do ore at that point. So it's a bit frustrating. Anyways, so if the majority of your thing is ore, you're really only going to get this ore passive. Now, if you're using ore and some other stuff, you're going to have to include more ore, especially if it has its own trait applier. Mithril's decent once again. So my recommendation, depending on what ore you can consistently pull. So say you have ores that are close to the mithril passive of 3.5 or the mithril multiplier. Say you got a good amount of rubies and some, just say you got a good amount of rubies along with your mithril, maybe even uranium. I would recommend mithril. Mithril, if you slap mithril, uranium, and rubies together, really good combo because they're all very close in multiplier, not too far apart. It's like a 6x or a 0.6 multiplier. Like it's not too big of a difference, especially if your main compensation is mithril and uranium, and ruby is just being used as a filler. Obviously, riviolite would be good, but it does have a weapons passive, so it technically isn't beneficial. So something like mithril as the majority, riviolite or ruby, and uranium. Now, the reason why I say mithril and uranium is because these both have boosts, 15% extra defense on armor and 5% max HP AoE damage on armor. So what this recipe would look like is, say we're using mithril, we're going to use 10 mithril as our main filler, because once again, we're trying to get down to heavy. So let's say we're using 15 mithril. We're using 5, let's say, 5 uranium and 5 rubies. Now we can get a heavy helmet at a 51% chance. Now, if I want to get this as a note, remember, mithril is a 3.5x and our overall is only pretty much 3.3. So we're only losing a 0.2x, so it's not that bad. And we have all these passives. So now if I were to add more uranium, obviously the multiplier goes down, but now we have the full passive of uranium and we have the ability to get heavy leggings. So you essentially want to rinse and repeat and cycle this formula for when you're trying to craft armor. So what I used when I first crafted mine was, since I was using, I think I used some ore and some of them as just a 4x filler to try to increase the overall. I believe this is before I was less educated on the matter, but I used, I think it was 10 mithril, 15 riviolites, and 5 eye ore, and I just added more or less eye ore depending on which thing I was trying to get. Like if I wanted leggings, helmet, or a chest plate. And then I just, you know, did it. I had to craft 2 chest plates before I got the dark knight chest plate, and then I got a dark knight helmet and leggings on the first try. So obviously those are the rarer ones, but they're also the better ones. But for the most part, once again, decent overall information. Once again, if this helped you out, make sure to leave a like. But for the most part, that's pretty much it for this video. If this helped you out, once again, make sure to leave a like. Website will be in the description, and I